ASU football looks to bounce back against Eastern Michigan after a rough week on the turf. And ASU women's soccer comes back from cancellation and continues to steamroll opponents. And some big news making the turn in the past few days as star golfer David Pooge makes his decision on the LIV Tour. All that and more on this edition of Cronkite Sports Live. Hello and thank you for joining us for another edition of Cronkite Sports Live. Kevin Malater joins me at the desk for the first time ever. We're both so glad to have you with us. Kevin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the class here in Studio 6?
Well, thank you for putting him on the spot there, Ethan. Now, there's only two things I really love. That's sunsets on the beach and football teams that convert on third down.
Well said, Kevin. Okie State was repeatedly able to get off the field and get stops this past weekend, and that paired with the speed of the Cowboys' offense just looked like too much, too early in the season for the Sun Devils. Now, let's go ahead and take a peek at the report card with Sun Devil football reporter Jack Pearson.
Saturday's loss in Stillwater against Oklahoma State was an intriguing one for Arizona State. They really weren't out of the game until late in the fourth quarter when Spencer Sanders threw his second touchdown of the game. But why did the Sun Devils fall short? Let's take a look at the chalkboard for Cronkite Sports Report Card. It wasn't the start that Cowboy and Sun Devil fans alike may have expected. ASU went into a hostile environment and shut down star quarterback Spencer Sanders and his explosive offense to 0 points in the first quarter, yet they only had a 3-point lead. ASU's third down offense was the significant reason for the lack of scores. They were just 2 of 13 on third downs in the game, and for that, they receive a D-. Despite the low-scoring affair early, it has to be noted that Oklahoma State was stagnant on offense, and boy did the Sun Devils look prepared. Watch here as the front four rushes wide and opens the middle for Sanders, and then close it as soon as Sanders takes off to run, trapping him for a short gain. And then, Kyle Soley reads Sanders' eyes like a book on this interception later in the game. For this first half performance, the defense deserves an A-. Mike Gundy's hurry-up offense really became a problem for the Sun Devils as the game progressed, and it was only a matter of time before Spencer Sanders was going to get things going and get the ball in the end zone. But it was the unnecessary penalties that really changed the outcome of the game. Late hits on Sanders were all too common and gave the Cowboy offense free yards and more opportunities to score the ball. Our report card shows a C in this category as ASU was penalized 10 times for 95 yards. Where ASU did excel in this game was its abundance of explosive plays. Right out of the gate, Valade broke out a 42-yard run to set up a field goal for the Sun Devils, and check out this 73-yard strike to Giovanni Sanders, which led to a touchdown in the second half. The Sun Devils were able to expose that Oklahoma State secondary numerous times, and for that reason, they receive an A-. This has been Jack Pearson with the Cronkite Sports Report Card.
Jack Pearson with the analysis there. Now for a preview heading into Eastern Michigan, and to bring a full scope on things here, we bring in Mike Donahue. Mike, what do you got?
Thanks, guys. ASU and Eastern Michigan meet for the first time in their history on Saturday, and this game should be a huge opportunity for the Sun Devils to bounce back after last week's loss, because a lot of what ASU struggled with against Oklahoma State shouldn't be an issue against the Eagles. As Jack mentioned earlier, ASU went 2 for 13 on third down last week. Expect that number to improve against an Eastern Michigan defense that allowed their opponents to convert on 62% of their third downs, which is dead last in the FBS. Keeping quarterback Emory Jones comfortable in the pocket should also be easier than last week against an Eagles front that has recorded 1 sack on the season. And for all the fans that want to see Jones and the ASU offense pass more, that might have to wait another week. The Eagles defense ranks 121st nationally and allowed nearly 200 rushing yards a game last year. So expect running back Xavier Valade to have another big game on the ground.
Hey, thanks, Michael, for the look at Eastern Michigan. It'll be interesting to see how that defense of theirs will fare against the running game of Arizona State. And one of the most crucial parts to a good ground game is the offensive line. And for more on that, we say hello to WCSN football reporter Jake Seymour. And Jake, what is the update on the left tackle positional battle?
Well, Kevin, it's been one of those positions that's been under a positional battle. And that kind of seems like the mantra of this Arizona State squad this season. But right now, Emmett Boley started off at the left tackle position, dating all the way back to spring practices. But as preseason progressed in August, Isaiah Glatz kind of took over that position. He started against NAU and Oklahoma State. It's kind of up in the air who's going to start left tackle heading in to this week against Eastern Michigan. But it's one of those positions where it's going to just depend on game to game and whatever Herm Edwards and his squad wants to do.
And it's going to be really interesting to see also now with the injury to Joey Ramos, how do you think that's really impacted this offensive line of Arizona State?
Joey Ramos is one of those guys where, yes, you only lost one player, but in a way you almost lost five because of the versatility that he has on that line, playing both the center and guard and tackle positions. Losing a guy like that is going to be hard to make up. He did kind of beat out Chris Martinez at right guard, but unfortunately Des Holmes went down against NAU, forcing the kick over to right tackle, where he again suffered that season-ending injury.
And finally, I know it's only 2 games in, but what has impressed you about Ladarius Henderson's pulling ability against NAU and now Oklahoma State?
Just take a look at it, Ken, right here. Number 77, Ladarius Henderson, the left guard. You'll see right here, he pulls around, shows number 9 have that dirt taste, giving Valladay the room to make a nice rush. See Ladarius get all happy up there. Top of your screen now, left guard once again, Ladarius Henderson pulls around the corner, giving enough room for Valladay again to get a good solid rush, and this is what Ladarius does. Once again, we'll do it on this next play here. This time it's Nagata in the backfield. Henderson absolutely puts the defensive end on the outside, giving that room for Nagata to get out to the outside and rush for that first down. It's something he's done throughout his career. It's something that he continues to do for the Sun Devils.
All right, Jake, thank you so much for your time. It'll be really interesting to see how this pans out against Eastern Michigan on Saturday night.
After a couple of cancellations in the women's soccer schedule, you could tell they were fired up to take the field once again. The Monsters come out at night for those 7 o'clock kickoffs at Sun Devil Soccer Stadium, and ASU certainly scared their opponent Wednesday night. It was Grambling State in town for a match with the Sun Devils. This one wouldn't be pretty for GSU, though, as the Tigers would get off to a slow start and things would just not get any better as Nicole Douglas and her team taking the pitch early on. Douglas gets the Sun Devils started with a great right corner finish as she just continues to dominate the competition. Here's another one as she just continues to tear it up with another bottom right quarter finish as Nicole Douglas and the Sun Devils are rolling early against the Tigers. Let's switch it up though. We're coming out of a corner kick formation here. The Sun Devils bring it up towards the top. They try to feed one in to Douglas and the rest of the Sun Devils. 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stop, and a clear for the Tigers. A terrific defensive display there by Grambling State. And Arizona State would try to keep things going and continue to give that offensive pressure in the middle of the zone. A close opportunity there just wide. This one though just inside the post. It's Alexia Delgado with a gorgeous finish. There's that final score as another one will go by the goalkeeper there. 5-0. Sun Devils improve to 3-0-2. Here's Nicole Douglas after the game.
Something that we practiced in training all week, switching the point of attack, not forcing the ball too much, waiting for the opportunities to open up, and we did that really well. We saw the gaps in the defence and we managed to play really good soccer around the edge of the box, and we got shots off in and outside of the area and inside.
Once again, that was Nicole Douglas following the team's 5-0 victory over Grambling State on Wednesday night. Now, 5 matches in for non-conference play. The Sun Devils sit at 3 wins, 2 draws, and no losses, and they're set to begin conference play in just a few days. With that, we bring in WCSN soccer reporter Ryan Sikora. And Ryan, 5 matches in, how do you view the form of Arizona State thus far?
5 games in, they've been better than usual for Arizona State in non-conference play. Graham Winkworth, long touted for getting his team up and playing a certain style. They've never really been able to fully realize his full potential for his vision. This year, not the same story. They've been fantastic. 3 wins, 2 ties, no losses. They're undefeated, and it's shown on the field. The last 2 games, 11 goals in that 2-game stretch. They've started to turn it on as conference play nears for the Sun Devils, right? And they've done it because of, well, their players up top. Nicole Douglas, 8 goals in 5 games. That's phenomenal. One of the best margins in the country. Eva Van Dersen, Alexia Delgado, the 2 midfielders, both 5th years, as is Nicole Douglas, right? They are the linchpins of that midfield sector. Carrie Matthews didn't play a lot in her freshman year. Injury issues riddled her. She's back. She's full form. She's athletic. She's rangy. She gives them a different bit of a look on the right wing. Defensively, a little more solid as well. They ship about a goal a game, but when you're scoring 2 or 3 a game, it doesn't really matter, right? So they look more complete. They look a little more in form heading into what should be a very, very good stretch of the season.
I will say, though, in that non-conference stretch, Arizona State did lose potentially one of their toughest matchups of the non-conference season, that Pepperdine matchup that was canceled due to the COVID pause. The team went under. Do you feel they need to make up games like that, or do you think, hey, the conference is too strong, you don't need to worry about that?
I would love for Arizona State and Graham Winkworth to go out and get that Pepperdine game back, or get a quality opponent of the similar grade of Pepperdine back, but it's not going to happen, right? You have Pac-12 play coming up. It's just too tight of a schedule, and it's one of 3 games they lost. They lost a game to Hawaii way back about a month ago to weather. They also lost a game against Georgia Southern. Those 2 mean a lot less than that Pepperdine game. Pepperdine, top 10 team in the country, consensus, number 9 in the United Soccer Coaches Poll. Arizona State hovering around that 15 to 20 range in most of the rankings, which means, hey, you're getting a top 20 team versus a top 10 team. That's a really good matchup, a really good litmus test for Arizona State to go out there and play a team that, hey, you're probably going to see if you make it to the tournament, right? So Pepperdine, a team that has a really good shot going to the NCAA College Cup, which is basically the women's soccer Final Four. Arizona State would have loved to have that one. Sadly, they lose it. But hey, guess what? You got Pac-12 play, and that is really the true test of any team.
And as they get set to start Pac-12 play in a couple of days, the conference is always so tough, as it is every single year. How do you view the Sun Devils can fare in this year's edition of it?
I think well. Right now, that 16th or 15 to 20 ranking that I mentioned Arizona State is kind of hovering around, that's second highest in the conference. Really only UCLA, maybe even Stanford could sneak above them, which means they're second, third, maybe even at worst, 4th best team so far in the conference. So on paper, they stack up really well. One thing with Graham Winkworth, though, they've always kind of struggled in conference play. 14, around 41 and 10 in conference play for a guy who's usually coaching around teams that are up 500. So they're losing a lot more in conference play than they are in non-con. So it's always kind of up in the air as to how they'll do. Conference play is so tough. You're playing on Thursday, you're going a full 90 minutes, you're running hard, and then you got to go back out there on Sunday in the West Coast heat, run for 90 minutes again, do the same thing. Then it's a Thursday-Sunday schedule after that, Thursday-Sunday, and you're playing good teams every week. UCLA, USC, Stanford, Colorado's better this year than they are most years. Usually the bottom feeders in the conference are Arizona and Oregon State. They're improving. The best conference in the country for women's soccer gets just a little bit tougher this year. It's always a gauntlet. Let's see how the Sun Devils can fare.
No easy test whatsoever for the Sun Devils this season. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. We now move on and introduce a new segment to you all called King Tut's Corner, a segment that Ethan's been pushing all week long, so now, here it is.
This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game. Hello?
You play to win the game. That's exactly right. Unfortunately, as Herman, every other coach knows, it doesn't always end up being a W on the schedule. And almost as if cued in on a TV show, the Twitter trolls walk through the door and arrive, creating a firestorm of criticism. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the reactions to ASU's last game against Oklahoma State on Twitter, as fans taking to social media. And right out of the gate, I mean, come on, I had to bring it up. Oklahoma State already poking some fun at ASU on Twitter, referencing Herm in their caption here. Not super original, but let's take a look at something a little bit more shocking. Urban Meyer coming up in a lot of headlines regarding college coaching recently. Here's a take that could shock the college football world if it ended up happening. Urban Meyer stepping in to man the ship in the maroon and gold. Just let that sink in. Urban Meyer in Tempe, what an interesting hire that would be. Of course, we know his path over these past couple years with the Jaguars and everything, but if Herm were to go on to a really poor season, you never know. Monumental upsets happening all across the country this past weekend in college football, and even some losses from Colorado and Arizona out of the Pac-12. But seriously though, who's surprised about those? I mean, the last time the Buffs won a bowl game was 18 years ago, and for the Wildcats, it's been several years as well. But hey, that's besides the point, right? Let's go ahead and check out some of the upcoming games this week in the Pac-12, and one that immediately sticks out is that U of A versus NDSU game. As I mentioned earlier, these FCS and Group of 5 programs have been dominant against Power 5 schools in the spotlight this season, and this game could be no different with the trend we've seen so far. So that is my upset to watch out for this week. And before we move on, I want to put the spotlight on a Sun Devil who keeps showing up in the prompter here in Studio 6. It's Nicole Douglas. She fired off a hat trick of goals against Grambling State to Wednesday night and has continued to light it up even after collecting the title for all-time leading goal scorer at ASU. Game. Nicole Douglas certainly has a lot of that out there on the pitch. Let's go ahead and keep the show rolling, though, with some volleyball.
Ethan, thank you so much. That was actually really worth the wait. Now to women's volleyball, where the Sun Devils are just a few days away from starting Pac-12 play. As always, the conference looks to be one of the toughest leagues in America. And for more on that, we check in with our Riley Swenson for today's Impact.
Thanks, Kevin. Conference play is about to begin in the Pac-12, and the league looks to be strong from top to bottom. As of matches played through Thursday evening, all the teams in the Pac were either at or above the 500 mark. The conference had 6 teams in the preseason top 25, and the latest poll had 3 teams in the rankings, along with 5 others receiving votes. The traditional powers of Stanford and Washington are still the frontrunners so far, as they currently sit as the top-ranked teams in the conference. But what the conference has this year that it is not used to is depth. Since 2011, only 3 different teams have won the Conference of Champions in USC, Stanford, and Washington. This year, there are some new players at the table, though, with teams like Utah, Colorado, and possibly Arizona State looking to contend for a conference title. Last year, the Sun Devils finished with a 7-13 record in conference play and failed to make the NCAA tournament. ASU brings back a lot of talent and leadership from that team a year ago and are looking to prove themselves in what appears to be a deep Pac-12. Now, back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Riley. One team that has found the formula for long-term success has a new speed bump. ASU cross country will have to navigate another season, but this time with a new head coach. Henry Dominy has the story.
Early July, it was announced that Sun Devil Athletics found their new cross-country coach, Ryan Godfrey. He comes to Tempe with 18 years of coaching experience at the Division I level, spending time with both Kansas State and North Dakota State. The new head coach spoke about his journey to Tempe.
Well, Coach Miller called and said that they were looking for a coach, and it just sounded like a great opportunity. We would always come down here for the Sun Angel meet or the Baldy Castillo meet, and so it was always one of my highlights in terms of coming down to Tempe and competing here. So it's always had it's left a good impression on me. So the combination of having those memories and then getting a chance to talk to Coach Miller, it seemed like a great opportunity.
He inherits 2 high-caliber runners in Vinnie Maury and All-American 800-meter runner Dayton Carlson, who spoke about their new coach and what he has brought to the team.
Yeah, I've noticed that he specializes in 800 and 1500, kind of just looking at his bio and everything. I'm really excited for track season, but I'm also excited to see what I can do during cross-country. I didn't really get the chance last year. I feel really in shape, and we're playing it safe this year. Last year I wasn't playing it as safe, so I'm excited for what the year has.
Coach Godfrey, he's only been here for a couple weeks, but I definitely look at him as a great coach and a great friend. We're definitely building a good relationship.
The ASU cross-country team has struggled recently to lock down a head coach, with Godfrey being their 4th in 5 years. However, the coach did share his plans on how long he's going to be staying in Tempe.
Well, I'm getting old now, so I don't really want to keep moving around. Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm here until I retire.
Coach Godfrey also brought back assistant coach Ryan Ray to ASU from the University of Arizona after he spent 2020 as a volunteer assistant with the Sun Devils.
Yeah, Coach Miller had worked with him. I had spoken with Coach Ray a number of times on the phone, so I knew him a little bit. But Coach Miller had great things to say. And then Coach Ray's father, Irv Ray, is someone I've known for a long time. He's been a mentor of mine. And so there was that connection.
This weekend, Sun Devil Cross Country is heading to the UC Irvine Invitational to start their season. However, they will be back at the same course for the Pac-12 Championship in late October. For Cronkite Sports, I'm Henry Dominy.
Thanks, Henry. It'll be interesting to see how the team handles that new addition. Sun Devil men's golf back in action as well at the Fighting Illini Invitational this week. ASU will hit Olympia Fields Country Club for a 3-day tournament against other highly touted collegiate golf programs. For the Sun Devils, Kevin, it was smooth sailing last season, and they're trying to pick up right where they left off, and I think you have a live update for us as well.
Yeah, Ethan, they actually just finished up day 1 of the tournament right now. The Sun Devils were led by Preston Summerhays, who shot 1 under on the day. As a team, ASU is currently sitting in 5th place, shooting 5 over as a unit, but there is a whole lot of golf to be played throughout the rest rest this weekend. And in other golf news, it was announced that Sun Devils men's golfer David Puig will forego the remainder of his collegiate eligibility to join the LIV Golf Tour. Our Anthony Remedios has more.
Thanks, guys. While it certainly is a controversial move for Puig that will earn its share of hate, as all LIV Tour members have, his ASU career will certainly be one to remember. Puig spent less than 3 full seasons in Tempe, but in that time, he won 3 tournaments and finished in the top 10 7 other times. He's a 2-time All-American and tied for 11th in last year's NCAA championship, where the Sun Devils finished as runners-up to Texas. This summer, Puig reached the round of 16 at the 2022 U.S. Amateur Tournament. Puig competed overseas in 2 LIV tournaments earlier this year, but rejected all winnings to keep his amateur status and eligibility as a Sun Devil. That all changes this weekend as he makes his pro debut at the event in Chicago, just 62 miles from his former teammates at the Fighting Illini Invitational. Although he is no longer a college athlete, Puig also announced that he will finish his degree at Arizona State later this year. Reporting live from the Thunderbirds Golf Complex at Papago Golf Club, I'm Anthony Remedios, WCSN. Back to you guys in the studio.
So there it is. Cat's out of the bag, folks. Former ASU golfer and number 9 amateur in the world, David Puig, is headed for the LIV Tour. A couple days in here since the hearing the news, that is, and there's a lot of different opinions out there from people on this thing. Should he have simply finished out his college career and played alongside the world's best? Or did he make the right decision foregoing his final 3 years of eligibility to join one of the sport's newest attractions in the LIV Tour? Don't get me wrong, LIV has done a number of things terrifically well. Players are making more money and playing less golf. From a player standpoint, what's not to love about that? But right now, as it stands today, the PGA Tour is chock full of far more talent than their competitors at LIV. Will it look the same in 5 months, 5 years? Who's to say? Players who have joined LIV, though, have had good things to say about it, most notably former Sun Devil and 5-time major winner Phil Mickelson. Mickelson quoted earlier this week saying, "I do think that it's important that players have the right to be able to play when and where they want and when and where they've qualified for." Okay, so plenty of smoke being blown back and forth here between both the tours. If there's one big takeaway within the last week of all the noise, though, that we want you to leave with, it would have to be how the LIV Tour is starting to eye the world's next best players straight out of college. David Puig will be just one of the first few of many, not only out of ASU, but out of the entire NCAA, to join LIV and enjoy premium treatment, some of the most premium competition golf has to offer, and of course, a premium payday. And that's the way it is.
Well, that's our show. The Sun Devils are in competition all weekend long, so make sure to follow along on our socials so you don't miss a thing. For Ethan Tuttle, I'm Kevin Malater saying so long from Studio 6. We'll see you next week.